So in today's video, we're going to be simulating throughout every playoff series in the postseason where each team in the league has the opportunity to acquire the highest rated player on each team they beat. Just to give an example of how this will work, let's say we had the Philadelphia 76ers and Atlanta Hawks matched up against one another in the first round. And as the series progresses, we eventually have Trae Young lead his team to victory over Philly in 7 games. Instead of progressing on to the second round as normal, they would instead enter the series a brand new team with the addition of Joel Embiid, the highest rated player on the Sixers. This series of events would of course continue to occur, and every team that progresses deeper would increasingly get better up until we finally have our NBA champions. And yeah, as you can see, the playoffs are finally underway and the play-in tournament has concluded. And yeah, if you couldn't already tell by looking at the standings, instead of going into a fantasy draft and simulating throughout an entire NBA season, instead we're actually using the real-time rosters. So all your favorite players are still a part of their respective teams. Now, the seeding at the time you're watching this video, it may or may not be the exact same as to what it is inside this video, but it is a pretty good estimate. Here on the East, we have Philadelphia versus Indiana in the first round of the play-in tournament. Then we had Chicago versus Atlanta, and the two teams in the East that ended up making it through, of course, were Philadelphia and Indiana. And over here in the West, we had the Los Angeles Lakers beat Phoenix, and Sacramento ended up winning their game over Golden State. But that matchup didn't even really matter too much as Phoenix proceeded to make it into the playoffs. And our very first game of the postseason is, of course, between the Miami Heat and Cleveland Cavaliers. Being the third seed in the East with the home court advantage, there is a strong possibility that the Cleveland Cavaliers do end up winning this series over Miami. And if that does end up happening, we of course will witness Jimmy Butler make his way over to Cleveland. Now, looking at their roster, that would actually be a perfect fit because their starting small forward is actually Isaac Okoro, which, don't get me wrong, he's a great role player and all, but I'm sure this team will have no problem placing him as the 6th man and adding Jimmy Butler. And in game number 1, we actually had Miami stealing this game from Cleveland. Donovan Mitchell had a strong performance with 30 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists, but it wasn't enough to stop Miami as Terry Rozier led his team in scoring with 26. But in our second matchup of the playoffs, we have the New York Knicks going up against the Orlando Magic, and in game number 1, it's pretty close. Actually, I lied, it wasn't close. The Orlando Magic actually ended up winning by nearly 15 points. Paulo Banchero led his team in scoring with 27, but he also catered in 8 rebounds and 7 assists on 10 for 16 shooting, and Jalen Brunson with 41 points and 8 assists. I'm very surprised that that performance wasn't strong enough to lead his team to a victory. That might just go to show how important role players are for your team, because OG Anunoby didn't really have the greatest offensive game. I'm pretty sure it's safe to assume that he did guard pretty well, but Josh Hart only had 4 points. Isaiah Hartenstein only had 3 touches. So yeah, I think that the role players do need to step up a little bit for this team, and as long as they do that, they'll probably make it to the second or maybe even third round. But up next, it's the Pelicans and Thunder. These two teams are fairly young. I mean, OKC was just the youngest team in the league a season or two ago, and they ended up winning game number 1 by 8 points. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who was arguably the MVP this season, he had a really nice performance with 28, 5, and 8, and CJ McCollum had 26, 3, and 7. But here up next, we have the Los Angeles Clippers facing off against the Dallas Mavericks. And as a Clippers fan, I know that we beat Dallas almost every time we faced off against them, but Luka gave me PTSD. I can't even talk correctly. And yeah, Luka, he just continues to shine as Paul George had 38 points. And Luka Doncic was tearing up the Clippers defense this game as he, well, you could just look at the stats yourself. And heading over to Milwaukee, it's Indiana who's trying to upset this team. But with the dynamic duo of Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard, it is going to be difficult. And yeah, as you can see, the Milwaukee Bucks ended up winning 122 to 107. And this matchup right here is going to be very, very good, and it's going to be something you'll want to pay attention to. Philadelphia did end up winning game 1, but if we have someone like Jason Tatum heading over to Philly or placing Joel Embiid a part of Boston, it's pretty much a wrap for the entire league if, you know, Boston gets Embiid at some point. And speaking of a series to look out for, here we have the Los Angeles Lakers facing off against the Denver Nuggets, and Jokic ended up leading his team to victory over the Lakers. Now, if we have LeBron James paired up with Nikola Nikola Jokic. I'm starting to think that they might actually be the championship favorites over Boston. The 7th-seeded Phoenix Suns managed to upset Minnesota. Anthony Edwards had 47 points and 5 rebounds. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Devin Booker dropped 37, 8, and 5. I'm going to go ahead and simulate throughout 2 more games just so we can get a general idea on how all the series are going so far. And having a quick look at the Eastern Conference, every single series is sitting 2-1, but the same thing cannot be said for the West, as the Los Angeles Clippers and New Orleans Pelicans are both down 3-0. And making our way over to Dallas to look at this series, it looks like the Mavericks are going to pull out in 4 games. That's really upsetting, and holy crap, Luka is a madman. 52 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists. Do you know how crazy that is? Looking at the Clippers offense, it looks like it was Russell Westbrook leading his team with 30. Paul George also had 20. James Harden had 15 and 9. And I don't see Kawhi Leonard anywhere, but if we scroll down, yeah, there he is. He only had 8 points in an elimination game. So, yeah, he's definitely not top 15. And you know what? Since I have to trade Kawhi Leonard to Dallas, let's go ahead and simulate to the second round. We're going to have Joel Embiid making his way over to Boston. Paolo Banchero is going over to New York. Jimmy Butler is making his way to Cleveland. And of course, Tyrese Halliburton is going to Milwaukee. And yeah, there you have it. Joel Embiid is officially paired up alongside Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, and Derek White. I'm going to need everybody to go down to the comments and send a prayer for every single team that comes across these guys, because they are probably going to decimate everyone in their path. And yeah, having a quick look, we have Paolo Banchero on New York. Cleveland has Jimmy Butler, who's wearing number 41. I'm going to change that really quick. But yeah, Milwaukee also now has Tyrese Halliburton, so that's going to be kind of weird pairing him alongside Damian Lillard, because they're both offensive threats and they both play the point guard position. I guess, you know, it only makes sense for me to make Tyrese a shooting guard, or would it be Dame? I don't know which one you guys would prefer, so I'm just going to go with Tyrese since he's taller. But having a look at the Western Conference, we also have plenty of other players being added to brand new teams. Of course, like I previously mentioned, we have Kawhi Leonard going to Dallas. Anthony Edwards is heading over to Phoenix. Zion Williamson is making his way to OKC, and arguably the greatest player of all time is being traded to Denver. We have Luka Doncic, Kawhi Leonard, and Kyrie Irving. I can say pretty confidently that this is one of the best pairings in the NBA, but I don't know if it's going to be stronger than all the other teams in the league. And man, oh man, here we have LeBron James paired up alongside Nikola Jokic. Do you know how insane of a combo this is? And you know what? I really want to switch LeBron to a small forward so we could start alongside Aaron Gordon. But if we do that, he's just going to start over MPJ. And I don't know which one people would prefer, so I'm just going to leave it how it is. It feels like the Phoenix Suns offense continues to grow every single season with the addition of Anthony Edwards. This is a guy who averaged nearly 40 points a game in his latest playoff series. So pairing that up alongside Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant, I don't know anybody that's going to be able to get a stop on these guys. But hey, here we have one of the youngest teams in the league with the newest addition of Zion Williamson. And I don't know if you guys noticed already, but I did swap Jalen Williams' position to a small forward. That way he could start along Zion and Shea. But this team can definitely contend with anybody over in the West. So it's going to be pretty fun to see who actually pulls out with the championship. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, but if you are enjoying this video so far, you should definitely consider leaving me a like since it does support the channel. But hey, up first we have the Denver Nuggets facing off against the OKC Thunder in the second round. And bro, I'm not gonna lie, these teams look so lethal. I know it's kind of hard to take your eyes off of Denver because, you know, I mean, they got LeBron, but the amount of depth this OKC team has, I don't know. There really is a chance that they end up acquiring LeBron James. Or actually, no, I guess they'd be getting Jokic because he's a 98 and LeBron's a 97. But you know what? We're just going to have to see how everything goes in game number 1. The Denver Nuggets, they just completely rolled over OKC. Chet Holmgren led his team in scoring with 25 and 10. And there's Jamal Murray with 38, 8 and 4. But despite only scoring 14 points in his Denver debut, LeBron James had a pretty nice offensive night, leading his team in assists with a whopping total of 12. And I just noticed that he shot 14 free throws this game. That is a lot for a guy like LeBron. But now we have the devastating matchup between the Denver Nuggets That is not the Denver Nuggets. But now we have the devastating matchup between the Milwaukee Bucks and Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, this is actually a really nice matchup because whoever wins this series gets exactly what they need for both of their rosters. It's either Milwaukee gets a highly talented small forward in Jimmy Butler, or Cleveland gets a really nice power forward in Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of rooting for Milwaukee here because if they make it past Cleveland and face off against Boston, they'll end up having Damian Lillard, Tyrese Halliburton, Jimmy Butler, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Joel Embiid all in one team, and that would be really nice to see. But so far, it's not looking like that's going to happen. And here it is, the rivalry continues to grow as the Phoenix Suns and Dallas Mavericks are playing yet again in the second round. If I remember correctly, Kawhi Leonard has Kevin Durant's number in these series, so we'll see historically if that can kind of stay the same. I'm hoping it does because I'm a Kawhi fan. But if you compare both teams starting five, the Phoenix Suns might actually have the edge over Dallas. But if I remember correctly, this team over here does have a lot more depth. But we're just going to have to see who comes out on top in game number one. Oh, this one's super close. We might have to jump in here in the fourth quarter, but actually never mind. Dallas proceeded to run away as Luka Doncic had 41 points, 9 rebounds, and 20 assists. And Kawhi Leonard is doing Kawhi-like things with 37, 5, and 5. I'm sure this dynamic duo right here is an absolute nightmare to face off against in the playoffs. Now, if I'm going to be completely and utterly honest, I don't think the New York Knicks have any idea on what kind of series they're getting themselves into. But hey, let's see it. Will New York somehow manage to prove me wrong and win a game this series? Because I'm imagining them getting swept. And so far, my prediction is looking good. Jason Tatum led his team in scoring with 33, 6, and 5. Joel Embiid, it looks like he's taking a little bit to grow accustomed to this new team, but I'm sure there's a lot of people getting touches, so he might not average a 34-point double-double like he normally does, but I mean, he might. There's still definitely a chance that he does that. I'm going to simulate a couple of games forward, and Dallas, Boston, and Cleveland are up 3-0 against both of their opponents. And the Denver versus OKC matchup is the only one that seems competitive, as the Thunder are only behind by 1 game. But you know what? Who's going to win game number 4? Will Denver manage to go up 3-1 against OKC, or will this young Thunder team manage to tie the series? It doesn't look like they're going to. Jamal Murray led his team in scoring yet again with 36 and 8. Nikola Jokic with yet another monster triple-double in the postseason. And how about this Milwaukee versus Cleveland series? Can Giannis Antetokounmpo do the impossible and come back from a 3-0 deficit, or will Cleveland manage to take this team out in 4 games? It looks like they're not going to do so, as Damian Lillard put up 44 points, 3 rebounds, 8 assists. He also shot 15 for 18 with 6 3-pointers made. Tyrese Halliburton seems to be fulfilling his role on the team, as he nearly had a 20-point double-double with 9 assists. Making our way over to Phoenix, who has the home court advantage. This team would be an absolute shock if they managed to lose this game, and it looks like they're actually going to pull through with a win. Over here in New York, we are in overtime. Boston is on the verge of defeat in game number 4, and this one is super close. We're going to have to jump in. There are 20 seconds remaining here in New York, and Jalen Brunson is at the free throw line. I'm praying for all New Yorkers' sake that he knocks these down, because if he doesn't, there's a pretty good chance that Boston's going to score on the other end. And the first shot is good. And all right, you know what? How about the second? Will he make this one as well? And that one is, yep, that one's good as well. But of course, this game isn't anywhere close to being done just yet. I would mainly be looking for Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, or Jaylen Brown right here. But here comes a screen from Jalen Brunson for Embiid, surprisingly. And Embiid is... Why was he wide open? Why was Joel Embiid wide open for 3? How did that pick and roll just work? You know what? New York doesn't have a timeout. Here's Julius Randle. He gives it off to Dante DiVincenzo, who puts up a shot and he misses to win the game. And it looks like we're heading to another overtime. Okay, Boston's up by 3, and I'm pretty sure they just knocked down some free throws, and I don't think New York has a chance of coming back. And there you have it. It looks like we are going to be adding Jalen Brunson to the Boston Celtics. And heading over to Denver, I wish I could say this game was close, but having a quick look at the scoreboard, Denver nearly won by 30 points. And of course, with this win over OKC, they will be adding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to their roster. And also, if you were wondering, because Shai is 6'6", I made sure I swapped his position to shooting shooting guard. That way Jamal Murray can continue to be a part of the starting five. But anyway, back in Milwaukee, things are not looking very good for this team, but there is definitely a chance of them making a comeback. But Cleveland is on the verge of shutting the door in their face. Giannis is trying to crawl his team back into this game, but it looks like it just wasn't enough. Tyrese Halliburton and Giannis Antetokounmpo both had 40-point nights, and on top of that, they also had double-doubles as well. But Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Jimmy Butler were just too strong of a combination. And of course, after that victory, they'll be adding Giannis Antetokounmpo to their roster. And speaking of closing the door, the Dallas Mavericks have officially eliminated the Phoenix Suns. I mean, it only makes sense since they have Luka Doncic and Kawhi Leonard, but now we actually have to go ahead and trade Kevin Durant to the Dallas Mavericks. And there you have it. This team just, I mean, they just got a whole lot better. Kevin Durant is paired up yet again with Kyrie Irving, and because it only makes sense, I'm going to go ahead and switch Kawhi Leonard back to a small forward. And yeah, the starting five of Luka Doncic, KD, Kawhi, Kyrie Irving, and Derek Lively II. This is a really nice team to root for if you're living in Texas. But in the Eastern Conference Finals, here we have the Boston Celtics and Cleveland Cavaliers. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I honestly think that Cleveland has a chance of making a trip to the NBA Finals. With the addition of Jimmy Butler and Giannis Antetokounmpo, this might have been the perfect pairing to take down Boston, because as you guys both know, both the Greek Freak himself and Playoff Jimmy have an absolute hatred for Boston. So pairing both of those guys up together might just be all the ammunition Cleveland needs. Hey, this might have been the perfect formula to take down this Boston team, because Cleveland managed to win by nearly 30 points. Giannis Antetokounmpo with 30, 12, and 5. Darius Garland had a nice night. Donovan Mitchell Donovan Mitchell played well. So did Jimmy Butler. So as long as they keep this ball rolling, they'll eventually add Joel Embiid to their team for the NBA Finals. But now for one of the most grueling playoff series of this video. Either way this series goes, we'll have Luka Doncic being paired up with Nikola Jokic. The only question is, who will both of these players end up playing for by the end of the NBA season? I know historically it's always a bad idea to bet against LeBron James, but I'm actually feeling pretty good for this Dallas team. But they just lost by nearly 40 points. Shai Gilgeous didn't take too kindly for Nikola Jokic stealing his MVP award, as he dropped 44 points and 14 assists in a playoff game. Meanwhile, Luka had yet another terrific night. Kyrie Irving also played well, and so far I don't see Kawhi Leonard, so it kind of seems like he was really just there for the defensive side of things. But I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna simulate a couple of games further, and let's see how things are going. Denver is actually up 3-0 against Dallas, and over here in the East we have Cleveland approaching with an upset over Boston. But you know what, I just have to simulate this game, because I mean, I just said a couple of seconds ago that I thought Dallas was going to win this series, and as of right now it's not looking good for them at all. And there you have it. Luka Doncic is officially about to be traded to the Denver Nuggets, who of course are making their way to the NBA Finals. And currently this series over here in the East is tied 2-2, and it appears as though the #1 seed will win game number 5. As far as the offensive side of the ball is concerned, everything was split pretty even between both of these teams. But can Cleveland manage to push this series to 7 games? It looks like they will, and you know what, let's just hop straight into it. I'm really excited to see who's going to win this matchup. I think everybody so far has been expecting Boston, but that might not be the case. It looks like we have a thriller on our hands. The game is severely tight. Cleveland managed to take the lead, and you know what, we just have to jump in. There's 17 seconds remaining, and we may just witness a playoff Jimmy Butler moment in real time. Here he is taking the drive over Jason Tatum. He's going to back out to the 3-point line. Here comes a screen from Jared Allen. Jason Tatum guarded that pretty well. He needs to kick it off to someone or take the shot, and he puts it up, and that shot is no good. It was so close to going in, but it just rattled out. It just went out. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Boston does have possession and needs to get it in, but can Cleveland get a stop right here? Okay, never mind. It looks like they're just gonna have to foul Jalen Brunson. Will he knock this one down? Okay, the first shot is good. Now, how about the second one? Is he clutch? Is he that guy? I don't know. We're about to find out. It'd be really nice to witness a 4-point play right here, but here's Jimmy Butler with a shot, and that is no good. Jason Tatum did get the rebound, and he's being sent to the free throw line. And this one right here is for all the marbles. If he knocks at least one of these down, yep, it looks like the series might just be over. Cleveland does have a timeout, but Jason Tatum did knock down the second one as well. And I'm sure everyone in Cleveland is not feeling good right now. Jimmy Butler is having an aneurysm. And there you have it, just like that. Our NBA Finals matchup is between the Denver Nuggets and Boston Celtics. And man, before we can even jump into any simulations, we need to take a quick look at all these matchups. At the point guard position is Jamal Murray versus Jalen Brunson. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander versus Jaylen Brown does sound like a really intriguing matchup to me. And then there's Luka Doncic versus Jason Tatum. That one is really star-studded, and I mean, well, hey, we're going to be paying attention to that one the entire time, but maybe not as much as this one, as we have LeBron James versus Giannis Antetokounmpo. Both of those guys are without a doubt both Hall of Famers. And then there's Nikola Jokic versus Joel Embiid. I gotta be honest, we've all been waiting to see both of these guys play against each other in the playoffs. But yeah, it all comes down to this: who's going to win game number 1? All right, this one does seem pretty tight. Boston's up by 3, and with 3 seconds remaining, Boston is up by 2 points, but I'm going to jump in just in case something crazy happens. The Denver Nuggets do have possession, and if there's anybody in this world that I think can hit a shot right here, it of course is Luka Doncic. But there it is to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who does have to put it up, and that shot rattles in and out, and the Boston Celtics are going to win game number 1. That was not the guy that you wanted to have the ball in his hands right there. No offense to KCP, but hey, that is unfortunate for that team, but I'm sure they will bounce back at some point in this series. But the question is, will it be game number 2? I got pretty high hopes for this Denver team. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been praying on Boston's downfall this entire time. But all right, they are up by 3. Now they're up by only 1, and Boston ended up pulling away in the final seconds. Oh my goodness. Nikola Jokic with 47 points, 16 rebounds, and 8 assists. Meanwhile, Luka also had 17, 13, and 12. And at this rate, it looks like we might have a sweep on our hands. That would be really unfortunate because I need content. But here comes Denver. Yeah, they're storming through the front this time around. They put up 152 points in a playoff game. There's Nikola Jokic with 36. Luka had 28. Jamal Murray also had 20. What about LeBron James? He only had 14 points, but that doesn't really matter. Can Denver tie the series in game number 4? Yet again, you can only imagine that all these games are going to be close. But Denver is, oh my goodness, Denver actually managed to pull away in game number 4. Jason Tatum and Giannis Antetokounmpo both led their teams in scoring with 22 apiece. LeBron, even though he's 40 years old and in a wheelchair at this point, he had 25, 9, and 8. But in a lot of series, game number 5 is almost always the deciding factor for who wins the title. And Denver's out in front. The game is now tied, and with 16 seconds remaining, Boston does have possession of the basketball. Jrue Holiday gives it over to Jason Tatum, who drives to the lane, goes back out to the 3-point line. He does have Luka Doncic guarding him. There's Jason Tatum with yet another drive. He goes to the basket and he puts up a layup. That is such a super clutch shot from Jason Tatum. But there's still definitely a chance for Denver to win this game, especially when you have this many weapons on your team. And I see Luka out in the corner. Here goes Jamal Murray, who puts up a shot from nearly half court, and that is no good. Denver is just getting super unlucky on who ends up with the ball in the final possession, because I swear to you, if it went to anybody else in these past couple of games, they probably would have won the entire championship by this point. But now it's time for potentially the final game of this video. So far, this one is super close. And okay, Denver is in the lead by 3. Now they push it up to 4, and they do manage to slip away in game number 6. And here you have it. We're officially inside of game 7 of the NBA Finals. I really need this one to be tight. Pause. Denver has been creeping back into this game, but it looks like Boston's actually going to pull away with the NBA championship. I'm not gonna lie, that was an incredible series, and there was absolutely a chance that Denver pulled away with the win, but in their final matchup, they couldn't really pull through, and it looks like your 2024 NBA Finals MVP is Joel Embiid. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my most recent upload where we gave Stephen Curry a 99 driving dunk. If you made it all the way through this one, you'll definitely enjoy that one as well. But of course, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. I'm out.